So, welcome everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this evening's program, Buckland Not Preserve, Conservation Residential or Sprawl. And this program is hosted tonight by Prince William Conservation Alliance, and I'm Evelyn Parks. I am the Operations and Programs Coordinator with PWCA, and I'm excited to be joined today by several incredible speakers, including Michael Kieffer of Bull Run Mountains Conservancy, Elizabeth Ward with Green Risk, and Karen Bewick of Preserve Buckland. And at PWCA, Prince William Conservation Alliance, if you're not familiar with us, we are an educational and environmental grassroots nonprofit working to provide sustainable and equitable communities throughout Prince William County. And I'm going to share my screen so we can talk a little bit more about that. So if you'd like to learn more about our work, you can take a look at our website here at pwconserve.org. And from there, you can hop over to our calendar, and our calendar will show you all of the things that we have going on. We just had a hike this weekend with the Virginia Outdoors Foundation in memorial of our founder, Kim Hosen. And then we have some great events coming up next week at the same time on May 28th, also a Thursday at 7 p.m. We will have another Zoom event called Smart Growth Protects Rural Communities. And this event will talk about the dynamics of rural areas and urban areas and how it might seem that sometimes they have competing priorities, but really, if done strategically through a smart growth perspective, they can actually help each other and help protect our rural areas. And that will be with a member of the PWCA board, as well as the executive director of the Coalition for Smarter Growth. And then looking ahead to the summer, we're happy to participate in the annual butterfly survey with the North American Butterfly Association to help track and monitor the numbers of butterflies in the Manassas area by species. And we'll have folks go out, we provide the training, and we go out in teams and count the number of butterflies we see and report that data back so we can include the Manassas data in the greater North America survey overall. So these programs, we love providing these programs and providing information to folks, both with our upcoming programs as well as our past events. You can see a lot of our past YouTube events are here. But these programs, while we provide them for free, they're not free to put on. And we wouldn't be able to share these events and create these events without the support of generous people like you. So if during this presentation, if you feel inspired to support PWCA, you can come right here to our donate link and click on the donation form. And whether it's $5, $50, $500, whatever amount you can give to support is very helpful for us because we're a community supported organization and your work is what makes it, your generosity is what makes it possible for us to do this work. So we'll just jump into a few housekeeping things before we get started. We will have the three panelists tonight, and during that time, if you can please keep your audio on mute and then your video off just to preserve bandwidth during the session. But if you have any questions or thoughts during the meeting, go ahead and add those in the chat. And once we get to the Q&A, we will circle back to your question and you can come off mute. And if you'd like, you can put your camera on so that you can ask your question or share your insight. And that way we can have that community conversation. So that's our housekeeping and our first introduction. But to set the scene for us, I'm going to turn it over to Elena Schlossberg with the Coalition to Protect Prince William County. They are co-hosting this event with us tonight, and she's going to kick us off. Take it away, Elena.
Evelyn, you just did a fantastic job.
Thank
I
you.
just want to compliment you. So my name is Elena Schlossberg, and yes, I'm the executive director for the Coalition to Protect Prince William County, but I have been a board member for Prince William Conservation Alliance for approaching 21 years. So for me, this is a very honorable place to be in because normally this would be the part where either Kim Hosen as the executive director or Ashley would be doing this part. So excuse my my attempt, but I am going to set the stage for everyone. this is Buckland not preserve. And it is impossible not to be aware, if you live in Prince William County, to see all the threats that are happening to the remaining agricultural and forest areas, which was the Rural Crescent, which was adopted in 1998 as a land use tool to not only protect our agricultural opportunities, our groundwater, but also to protect our critical tax dollars. And now we find ourselves after the 2040 comprehensive plan was adopted in 2022, experiencing these applications into our really important rural areas that still exist. We have tools right now that we can still utilize to protect what still remains of our important watershed, our historical resources, and our cultural resources. But if we allow these comprehensive plan amendments under the guise of smart growth to move forward, then we're going to lose these important opportunities to protect what remains at a time where I would say we can all see that Prince William County is experiencing the kind of development pressure that we've never experienced before, not only high density housing in the wrong places, but also data center development and their infrastructure. So I just want to briefly mention those opportunities that exist right now, which is the Arts, Ag, and Overlay District that was also adopted in 2022. And of course, Purchase of Development Rights Program. Both of these land use tools, because that is what they are for preservation, can only be successful if we protect the rural spaces that exist now. Because if this higher density sprawl, whether it be data centers or housing, is allowed to move forward, then we will lose the opportunity to use a purchase of development rights program. And the Arts, Ag, and Overlay District simply can't survive if what we are doing is only sprawl. And so I'm so thrilled to be here this evening. I want to also remind everyone that survey after survey that has been done by Prince William County Planning and government has always reinforced that people from east to the west want to protect our unique rural character. We are the only county that that stretches from a tidal basin to a mountain range, and that makes us pretty special. So I'm going to introduce our speakers. I want to give a little bit of background. First, I want to introduce Michael Kieffer. And Michael may not remember this, but I met Michael, I think it was, let's see, 2006, when I brought my son to a program at Bull Run Mountain Conservancy. And I don't know if Michael remembers that. He must have only been 6 years old, but he thought that was the most fascinating day ever. And he really wasn't a big fan of the outdoors. Michael has been, has overseen Bull Run Mountain Conservancy's vision for an active and healthy community for more than 25 years. Preservation is not a hands-off policy, but an engaged and committed endeavor by people who love and care for our Piedmont landscape. And I want to introduce also Elizabeth Ward. Elizabeth has both an MBA and Master's of Science in Chemical Engineering. She worked as a chemical engineer for both the US EPA in DC and DuPont before becoming a consultant with Washington Advisors. Elizabeth retired and began her volunteer career serving 10 years as the treasurer of the Prince William Soil and Water Conservation District. She also shares articles on her website focusing on environmental issues impacting Prince William County. We'll share a link to this in the wrap up. And she will help us understand the significance of this data and why continuing to build out rural lands undermines long-term strategies to protect these water resources. And I want to introduce Karen, my new friend. As difficult as these incursions are and these ridiculous land use proposals, it is an opportunity for us to meet our neighbors. And I have thoroughly enjoyed meeting Karen. She also gave me a bunch of her awesome beefsteak tomatoes plants, which I had planted in my garden. So bonus for me. So Karen is a member of Preserve Buckland, a coalition of civic-minded residents living in and around the historic Buckland district who are fighting to prevent the development of fragile wetlands, old-growth forests, and numerous Virginia heritage sites. She has been working tirelessly to protect the area included in the Buckland Not Preserve proposal and is a prime example that people who care can make a difference by acting locally and uniting their communities. And so I'd like to introduce Karen first to share with the community who's here. And also this is recorded. So obviously anyone can watch this at a later date. So Karen, please share with the community online why it's so important to protect Buckland and stop this application. Can you unmute? Do you see it? It's on the lower left at the bottom. I know you can do it because you did it earlier. You can do it. Look, so look on your screen. On the lower left, you'll see a little icon
All
that
right.
says
Did it
audio.
work? Did it work?
Okay, we're good.
Okay. All right. Yay. Hi, my name is Karen Bewick, and I am so thrilled to be a part of this. And Elena, you are, again, one of my brand new best friends. Elena is amazing, and the work she does is incredible. So, Buckland, we are a very unique little rural community in that we go from Route 29 up to Cloverland Farms. And Cloverland, I think it's 1,000 acres conservation. And then we are from the west of 15, and we have Leopold Preserve in there. And we pretty much, our area goes out to Fauquier. We have farms, we have agribusiness, we have wonderful large lots, and unbelievable animals and wildlife. And we have wetlands. Just to on the development site is filled with wetlands. If JR Real Estate is able to persuade the supervisors to approve this comprehensive plan amendment, it will begin a rush of applications that will destroy the western rural part of the county. This is the test case, and so it is crucially important. So if you take a look at the map that is up there, this is actually a map that was provided by the developer, and my friend Patty Skinner and I basically colored in the all the markings that are wetlands and pond. So you can see that a large percentage of this property is wetlands. If we go actually to the other map where they'll be showing the forest, can you make that a little bit larger? Right. So that, again, this is the area, you can't see my hand, but the area in the orange and red, that is predominantly the area that's going to be developed. And the colored red, those are middle and late red maple growth. These are old trees. These are not brand new trees. They have been standing here for 40, 50, sometimes more than 100 years. The yellow is yellow poplar, white oak, and northern red oak forest. And again, these trees are huge. There are 151 specimen trees, and those are the little dots that you see. Those are our specimen trees. And the blue again, that's the wetlands. If JR Real Estate raises these swaths of trees and puts in basically a highly clustered group of homes. There are going to be 158 of these. The duplexes have been taken out. There are 158. In terms of the largest lot is 7,500 square feet, which is very small. And that lot, there are only 9 of those. There are 29 lots that are going to be 7,000 square feet. And there are going to be 120 lots that are 6,000 square feet. The county has complained about even the design and the layout of this cluster, because they say it's grid-like and boring. Should I go on and just do the rest of what I wanted to say now, Elena?
Yeah, Karen, I think it's important to tell people how many houses could go there now by right, which would be around
Okay,
20.
so yeah, all right.
Right?
All right. So I will do the whole thing then. All right. So by right, this is agriculture forest, and so it's 1 home per 10 acres, and they're putting in 158. The county planners absolutely despise this development. And you will have in your notes, in the notes at the end of the meeting, I was able to find the staff, the official staff response to Buckland Preserve, and so this is a request to change the long range land use designation from AF, which is agriculture forestry, to conservation residential, which allows for a proposed community it allows for a single detached and actually duplex. What is interesting about this is that every part of this proposal, the staff has said that it is inconsistent with adopted land use policies, conservation goals, and smart growth principles. They're saying this plan is incompatible with the existing land use pattern and the comprehensive designation for the area. They're saying that this change in zoning would represent a dramatic increase, approximately 20 times the current agricultural forest planned density. Such a shift would result in a significant loss of natural open space that currently provides important ecological benefits, including water resource management, biodiversity protection, air purification, and carbon sequestration. It keeps going on and on and on about how this is not the right development for this particular area. And lastly, this says this request. There's more. There's pages and pages, which I hope you guys will take a look at and use when you write to your supervisors, and to say how wrong this plan is. The request runs contrary to the county's smart growth strategies, which are embedded in both the comprehensive plan and the strategic plan. These strategies prioritize compact, mixed-use, walkable, and transit-oriented development while discouraging scattered and resource-intensive sprawl. So this is all a direct quote from the county. I wanted to just do a couple of a summary. Yeah.
Karen, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just realized that I already made a mistake and Michael was supposed to go, and Michael has to get off by 7:45. So,
all right, bye.
So no, it's okay. So we're just going to be fluid. And Michael, I apologize. Karen has at least laid the groundwork for the important things that you're going to share about why this area is so important to protect. And I apologize.
Thank you, Elena. There's no reason to apologize. And I do remember your son. I also remember you helping us save Silver Lake with your children in tow at a meeting at 1 o'clock in the morning, which was ridiculous for me with an intern who's a teenager. It was even more ridiculous for you as a new mom with very young children. So it's nice to see you. It's nice to see everybody. Just real briefly, I'm Michael Kieffer. I'm the Executive Director of Bull Run Mountains Conservancy. For those who don't know, we were formed in 1994 to protect the Bull Run Mountains through education, research, and stewardship. Our mission area in that Bull Run Mountain region can be defined, not exclusively, but our main focus, northeast corner would be Gilbert's Corner, 1550 or 15 and 50. Our northwest corner would be Middleburgish. Southwest would be Warrenton, and the southeast would be Wegmans, right on 29. And so that's our focus area. And I'll get back to the education, research, stewardship part. But my part tonight was really just to talk about water and the story of the water that comes off this mountain range and the perennial streams that feed the Occoquan and the Goose Creek watersheds that both feed into the Potomac and ultimately into the Chesapeake Bay. And my story starts before I got here. I've been the executive director. This is our 27th summer camp program, our 27th Halloween safari is coming up. A lot of 27s this year. That being said, the water work as far as monitoring and looking at these perennial streams started with Kim Hosen as a volunteer monitor, working not for, but with Cliff Fairweather of the Audubon Naturalist Society. And in 1997, Catlett's Branch, which is the main perennial stream that feeds Broad Run right here where our headquarters are in the Gap, that particular stream is the main one that then goes underneath 66, underneath 55, and joins Broad Run right at Cloverland, basically, pretty close. That being said, from what Kim and Cliff started with the stream, showing that it was rather pristine, rather nice, everybody was using the Audubon Naturalist Society's protocol back then in this area. In 2000, I took over that volunteer monitoring of Catlett's Branch, and from there, by 2003, we expanded it to 5 of the major perennial streams coming off the mountain. The ones that go into the Occoquan watershed would include Cat Harpin, that starts up at what we call Jackson Hollow, a gap farther north on the mountain. Just south of that is Hopewell Gap, where Little Bull Run begins. And then right here, Catlett's Branch, where we are today. All of them are spring fed, and all of them have wonderful seepage swamp communities of plants that you can enjoy. And that is where these waters begin. And then they pick up pace as they move downhill. When I took over that and expanded that program, one of the cool parts about the Audubon Naturalist Society's protocol is we always kept track of channel flow. And so I call it reach, but how much does the water actually fill the stream channel? And that protocol, we did spring, fall, summer, winter monitoring. So we were out there 4 times a year. And back then through 2009, when we kind of switched up, that all the streams and all the seasons, optimal, you'd get a 20, 19, 18, 17, or 16 score. So you can kind of be somewhere in there, like, is it an A plus? It's an A minus. For the most part, looking back at all the notes, this particular stream, Catlett's Branch, pretty much hit at that 18 to 20 every season of the year. This is 2003, the picture you're looking at, 2023, I should say, that you're looking at right now. And I just put this image up for you to look at, because what you can see is that instead of filling up the channel, you would reverse it in how, there's so little water filling that channel. And so that beach that you're looking at in the past, the water would not only be completely filling the channel, but the substrate, you wouldn't see any of it poking up. And in fact, the water poured over the beach like a waterfall back then. And it pretty much did it all year long. In the summer and the fall, when water would normally be its lowest, it still flowed. Early on in that, there was a new board member who is in the Bartons Creek Hungry Run watershed, which goes into the Goose Creek, which is farther north on the mountain. And one particular landowner who had some cattle, somehow one of the wells sprung a leak and they were on vacation. From that one well springing a leak, Hungry Run ran dry. And there was a gentleman named Jack Dawson who lived in that hollow his whole life from 1917 until he passed away in his 90s. And in all his life, there was some serious, serious droughts back in the early 19th century. It never ran dry. So one well dripping and leaking was enough to make that stream run dry. Well, that was an eye opener for us. And so I worked with this board member, Claude, and the idea was we were trying to figure out how we could do flow over time. And he had plenty of means to try to figure it out himself because Barton Creek runs through his property. And at the end of the day, at that time, there just was no good long-term way to do it without serious maintenance. And we never got it done. But we were very aware of the potential of groundwater issues with these perennial streams. But, after that incident, pretty much cruising through the 2015, 16, 17s, 18s, it wasn't that dramatic. It was starting to show, but certainly in my career, I never thought I would see it dry up. And if you skip to the next slide, you will see that is a railroad culvert that goes underneath Norfolk Southern's railroad line, and that is where Catlett's Branch squeezed under the railroad. And historically, we would do camp programs and come from the southern end, which is what you're looking at with the light. And we would get to that, and some children, partly because it was a cave, but mainly because the water would be up to their waist, would opt to take with me the route up and around and over the railroad track, while some brave ones went through. They didn't care how deep it was. That's dry. That's not only not wet, it's like dry, which is shocking. And so it all leads to our work being good on some level. Like what we documented in these streams through 2011 was a quite diverse macroinvertebrate fauna that we brought down to family. And we would do what's called a Simpson's Diversity Index, which I'm not going to bore you with. But basically, if you pull out 200 macros and you put them all in one bucket, you reach in, look at it, see the species, drop it back in, reach in, look at it, see the species, drop it back in. You'd see what percentage are new species each time, which gives you a really good indication of the health of the waters. And for all the streams that I just mentioned, they always rank between about 82% of the time you'd pick out a new species to as high as 94% of the time, which is it's a great diversity. And that's great. And even though this dried out, there's still macros. So you can still see that life. So it's a good indicator of the health of the water from a pollution standpoint, probably a good indicator of what populations are there. I should note in 2003, we did voucherize all the specimens from all the streams with VCU, and Leonard Smock down there, Dr. Smock, did the work for us. So we have all this at Natural Heritage for the future use. We never thought we'd get to that future use until maybe 2050, but maybe that'll come sooner. That being said, we can't tell what's happening to the groundwater. We just don't know. We know these are spring fed. We know, of course, the surface, the runoff, rains have a certain aspect to the flow, but we also know from our studies that with hurricanes coming in 2003, violent rainstorms, that these streams and where we monitored them really never had huge storm surge. It's very wooded. You have a beautiful forest substrate. It really controls flooding. And so flooding was never an issue. It was really always controlled by the groundwater discharge and by the spring seeps that feed into it. And so when this dries out, this isn't a drought issue. This has nothing to do with lack of rain over a couple of years. This has to do with there is something going on with the groundwater in this area. And it has expanded. I live in Fauquier County on a farm. The farm ponds, it lost at least a third of its volume, and it's another spring fed pond. And so this is spreading in the region. And I would just like to tee up Elizabeth Ward. We've had her at our speaker series years ago in 2023 to talk about groundwater. And I've met with her, and our vice president has, Mike Dow, privately. And in that meeting, we really support her efforts to bring the groundwater management area all the way to western Prince William County, which would bring approximately 20 USGS wells online to actually monitor the groundwater on a minute-to-minute, second-to-second basis. And so to get back to our education, research, and stewardship component of our organization, we're desperate for those wells. Those wells instantly add into the education, because now instead of me just assuming or making up stuff, we can actually see what's happening in those test wells. It leads right to our research, because then we could actually look at this from this point on and compare it, with the groundwater levels, and look at the flow, look at the reach, look at how much channel flow you have, and look at the macroinvertebrates. And then all of it, you would hope, would lead to the public wanting to get on board with this, and the stewardship aspect of it to recognize that we don't know, but maybe we can figure out what's happening to the groundwater. Is it farm use? Is it brewery use? Is it winery use? Is it just simply home use? And it is there, do the droughts extend long enough that, yes, they are starting to affect the recharge? We don't know. And so from our standpoint and this watershed and where the water's going, it's extremely eye-opening. And it makes us very nervous, because this water is what feeds the Occoquan. This water is what Prince William County residents east rely on. And if our water dries out and we're not feeding water into these systems during portions of the year, then it affects everybody. And so it would be great to get a better picture of the story. We can't get a better picture of the story without the test wells. And so we're just hoping that people will jump on board, get behind Elizabeth Ward, get this groundwater management area expanded to western Prince William County. Let's get these 20 test wells in the ground so we can start watching what's happening to our groundwater. That's all I have.
Michael, that was terrific, and kind of scary, that we don't know. So I appreciate all this work that you do and continue to do. And clearly, we're going to walk away from this conversation tonight with some of our own to-dos for our own board members, because we've been asking for this groundwater study for some time. So thank you. And I think you did actually queue up to Elizabeth. So to keep the actual order going, Elizabeth Ward, you're up.
Thank you, Elena. Let me share my screen. So when I was a bouncing baby engineer at the EPA in the 1970s, my boss came to me and said, "We've got a contamination problem in Prince William County, Virginia. There's an IBM site. Can you take a look at what the chemical contamination?" And that moment changed my life, because it started me on the path of groundwater, where I remained for the next 45 years. Remediating groundwater, cleaning up groundwater, preserving groundwater, treating community wells. And so groundwater has pretty much been my life. What we didn't know then is remarkable, and we still don't know everything about groundwater. So let's talk about what's happening in Prince William County. We are actively damaging the source water for the Occoquan Reservoir with the choices we are making now. The water that comes out of our taps does not start at the treatment plant. It starts in our watersheds, the upstream lands of the greater Occoquan watershed. When we pave and build in the watershed, we are not just changing the view. We are changing how water moves through the soils and the environment, how streams survive drought, and how much pollution reaches the reservoir. Here's the bottom line. Every acre of forest and field we convert to roofs, roads, and driveways reduces groundwater, increases pollution runoff, and pushes our streams closer and closer to drying up. That is how we destroy source water, slowly, cumulatively, and then suddenly. Right now, we are looking at another request to amend the comprehensive plan, this time the 200 acres from agricultural to allow 158 homes and all the attendance roads, parking areas, driveways, patios, and impervious surfaces. That kind of change is not neutral for water. It's a direct hit to the land that feeds our streams and ultimately Bull Run and the Occoquan Reservoir. So let's take a look at what the water to the Occoquan really comes from. It comes from Bull Run, the Occoquan River, other watershed and groundwater, and also from UOSA. Part of the water, a small part of the water to the Occoquan is recycled sewage. The Bull Run watershed is a critical part of the source water system for the Occoquan Reservoir, the reservoir that supplies drinking water to all of eastern Prince William County and much of eastern Fairfax County. The lower Bull Run area is among the most intact and least disturbed parts of that watershed. And it matters because once we fragment and pave these headwaters, we lose the natural infrastructure that keeps clean water in the system, especially during drought. What you saw in Michael's photos is not an isolated problem. It's a warning about what continued build out in Western and Central Prince William will do to our drinking water supply. To understand why this is happening, we need to talk about something invisible but essential, groundwater. So here we have, and this is Chestnut Lick. It's actually my backyard. So, and I put a stream channel water table to show really what it is. Groundwater, which is the dark blue, is actually the water between the surface that exists in the pores and the cracks of the soil and the fractured rock. It is not some great underground river. The stream itself is what flows. Groundwater is a crucial source of the water for streams and rivers, often providing 30 to 50% of their total annual flow. This steady, slow-moving contribution is called the base flow. The groundwater acts as the savings account that sustains streams over time, providing flow during dry periods. When the connection to groundwater is broken, when the water table falls below this black layer, then what happens is the streams do not flow during dry periods. Did I just do that to the whole thing? All right, let's check that out. As you've probably heard, all of Prince William County is, and almost all of Virginia is in severe drought. Usually rainfall average is about 44 inches a year here. Last year, we were about 9 inches short of average. And in the first 6 months of the water year, October 1st to September 30th is a water year, we had about half the usual amount of rainfall. We are currently, including yesterday's rain, a foot short of average, a foot of water. From 2018 to 2021, we had very wet period followed by a near normal rainfall period, but with dry summers. And those summers revealed a problem that had been growing unseen. And this is the problem. And this is one of Mike's pictures from a couple of summers ago in August. And this is Little Bull Run. And it was the driest anybody had seen at that time. So back to our stream diagram. In the Bull Run watershed, streams are gaining streams because they receive a direct supply of water from the ground. For groundwater to enter a stream, the water table, the top of the underground saturated zone, that black area in the picture, must be higher than the bottom of the stream bed. Water naturally moves from regions of high pressure to saturated ground to low pressure, this open stream channel, seeping through the stream bed and banks. However, if the groundwater is excessively withdrawn, as Michael suggested, pumped, or if groundwater recharge is reduced and the groundwater level starts to fall, the connection between groundwater and the stream can be severed, and what had been a perennial stream becomes seasonal. Increasing impervious surfaces from roads, pavement, and buildings, as we have developed the county, does two things. It reduces the open area for rain and snow to seep into the ground and causes stormwater velocity and quantity to increase, preventing it from infiltrating in the remaining open areas. Stormwater runoff increases in quantity and velocity, flooding roads and buildings, carrying fertilizer, oil, and grease, and road salt to our rivers and streams. In the past 5 years, we have watched as the flooding has increasingly occurred inland in these formerly open areas. This is the evidence that the water is not going into the ground. The flooding has increased. This flood map, the blues are is from the Swift Flood Rescue System for Prince William County. I just clipped it off. So these are the red and yellow, of course, are more intense flooded areas, but it's just showing that these areas are flooding and the water's just not going into the ground. All right, here we go. So these are, this is showing the evolution of water infiltration, what happens to rainfall and precipitation as you move from a natural forested area to a fully built out community. And as the area becomes more and more developed, rainwater becomes heated as it flows over the sun-warmed pavement, raising stream temperatures and stressing or killing sensitive aquatic life. Pavement, compacted lawns, because they do not really allow infiltration. Roads and buildings prevent groundwater from percolating into the ground, which previously served to cool the earth. Land temperatures increase. Loss of groundwater is a contributing factor to the heat island effect. It's been over 20 years since the last big building boom in the county. What we are observing now are the cumulative changes from the building boom that occurred in the late 90s to 2005. This isn't something that suddenly happened. This is something that happened slowly. In the past, groundwater in the Culpeper Basin was renewed each year through precipitation. But as we cover more and more of the region with impervious surfaces, this has been changing. The water stored in the watershed has always been able to provide adequate water in droughts to keep the rivers flowing, because historically the withdrawal of water was within the average recharge rate. However, that has been changing. And the only U.S. Geological Survey groundwater monitoring well in western Prince William County is no longer stable. It had been stable for decades. That water level has been very slowly falling for over a decade and a half. You can see it, you can eyeball it right here. It's just starting to slip down. It's a descending curve. That water, and despite a series of very wet years, if you recall. So here we are. Again, the result of that is this. When you don't have the groundwater touching the bottom of the river stream, you don't have flow during dry spells, during hot spells, where the soil moisture is taken out, the river won't flow. So this was the area in 1987. Let's go back and look at this stream. What the Bull Run Mountain Conservancy has seen in the streams are the signs of how our watershed is responding to that last boom of building and the two massive wells that are pulling 56,000 gallons a day at the top of Bull Run Mountain, or just the edge of it. This is now the new normal during dry periods, and it's a very concerning sign. Once the hydrology is destroyed by development, restoration is extremely difficult, if not impossible. The Occoquan watershed is essential for the region's drinking water supply, and the groundwater is an essential part of the streams and rivers. You cannot destroy them and expect to have drinking water. So in 1987, this area was lots of farms, a few houses, a couple of scattered communities. Though increased flooding is seen relatively quickly, a watershed responds to development slowly. Physical changes emerge over 20 to 50 years. Replacing 30 to 50% of a forested and open area with impervious surfaces permanently alters how water moves through the landscape. As you develop a watershed, adding impervious coverage, the watershed undergoes profound hydrological and ecological shifts that take years to be seen. But when they happen, they alter the hydrology. So here's the same view in 2024. Isn't it lovely? Suburban Mecca. The highways have expanded. We have data centers. We have strip malls. We have it all. And this is what's causing the streams to dry out. Impervious surfaces prevent water from soaking into the ground, which causes the water table to drop and streams to dry up during summer months. Runoff reaches streams much faster and in greater volumes, leading to higher peak floods and more frequent flooding. Perennial streams begin to experience dry periods when there is no flow or intermittent flow. Ultimately, streams become seasonal and then ephemeral. High-velocity runoff during storms causes severe bank erosion, blowouts that destroy aquatic habitats. Stormwater runoff collects oil, heavy metals, road salt, and nutrients, which are the nitrates and phosphates that come from all those lovely suburban lawns. The largest irrigated fertilized crop in Virginia is suburban lawns. All these things are transported directly into waterways and the Occoquan Reservoir without any natural forest filtration. So what do we need to do to preserve our water resources? We need to quit treating Bull Run watershed as we need to treat the Bull Run watershed as source water for water infrastructure, not leftover land for a build-out. We need to oppose comprehensive plan changes and rezonings that increase impervious cover. in the headwaters, feeding not only Bull Run, but the rest of the Occoquan system. We have to require stronger safeguards, limits on impervious cover, meaningful forest protection, groundwater recharge preservation, and stormwater designs that mimic natural infiltration. We have to support the acquisition and the conservation easements for large connected tracts in the watershed, because once they are developed, the hydrology is effectively permanently destroyed. If we keep treating this watershed like an empty canvas for growth, we will continue to actively destroy the source water for our regional drinking water supply, one that serves almost 1 million people. One rezoning, one road, one parking lot at a time, we are killing it. But if we protect infiltration, base flow, and intact stream corridors now, we protect the Occoquan for decades to come. I hope you will join me in putting drinking water first and pushing for the preservation of this most essential of our resources. Here you go.
Wow, that was really powerful, Elizabeth. I reversed your statement a little bit. Our watershed is not an empty canvas for growth. That is really powerful, and I am terrified if what we are experiencing now is from the past 20 years. That was, thank you, as usual. Thank you so much. All right, so actually, Karen, now to wrap it back up, if you want to finish your thoughts on why we've all gathered here today, that would be terrific. Obviously, I'll have a few words to say at the very end, but if you just want to wrap up why protecting your area is really part of protecting all of us, that would be terrific. Just finish up what you still wanted to share.
So the wetlands of this 200 acres flows into Broad Run. It's a pretty direct connection. It goes actually from the development site, the 200 acres, it goes down to my farm, my little pond, which then goes down into Broad Run. It also goes down to the Elliott farm, and there are several other ponds, and then they all overflow and they all go down to Broad Run. And Broad Run, of course, goes right into the Lake Manassas. And Lake Manassas goes into the Occoquan Reservoir. I can already see, just with the development around 55 and 15, I can already see a reduction in the amount of water in my pond. I can already tell that the groundwater, it was a wetlands. It used to be that you couldn't really walk in there because it was so sloggy. You would get wet. It's not very wet very often anymore. And it's still an identified wetlands. So we don't have a lot of rural agricultural forested areas left. Most of this forest has not been logged. These are huge swaths of mature trees, 151 specimen trees. And it connects directly with Cloverland, which is 1,000 acres. It is what I think, Elizabeth, thank you so very much. It is what Elizabeth was talking about. We need to protect our rural area so it can protect us. If JR succeeds in persuading the supervisors, the planning office is, as you could tell from just the bits and pieces that I've already read, the planning office is not in favor of this development for many, many reasons. But we need to contact the supervisors. We need to use a lot of Elizabeth. I'm guessing we can use your information. We need to try to persuade the supervisors not to destroy our rural area. If JR succeeds, it is the first of many, and we will be killing ourselves. So, not only that, I just wanted to say one last thing. There has not been a water study, groundwater study performed. I have asked JR multiple times. I said, please do a groundwater study. They do not seem interested in doing a groundwater study. This area is not only important ecologically, but it also is important culturally and historically. This area is one of the first areas. Buckland was one of the first areas to be a town. There were improvements and innovations and inventions in Buckland that are important to the founding of our country. It was also a very important Native American site. The Cherokees went up and down the East Coast, and Buckland was one of their sites. There used to be mounds there. They called it Buckland is because it was Buckland. There were so many deer here that they called it Buckland. And then the colonists took the name and converted it. So I'm just asking and begging everybody, let's all do what we can. Let's write the supervisors. Let's pay attention. Let's preserve our way of life.
Thank you very much, Karen. I think that was a really wonderful way to wrap up the presentation. And so there's a couple comments and questions that I wanted to point out. Okay, so I'm just going to start. Let's see. Did you want to say one more thing, Elizabeth or Karen?
Yes, they are going to resubmit the proposal, the development within a week or so. So
Okay.
we have to write the supervisors now.
Okay, thank you for that update. Okay, very good. Well, that answers that question from Laura. Is there a deadline? The deadline, while it's not in a week because they're going to resubmit, I would recommend people should start writing now, and they should just get a continuous protect our groundwater. Our watershed is not an empty canvas for growth. I think Elizabeth's point about we are just now experiencing the development boom from 20 years ago. I can't even imagine. I'm terrified what we have done for our children, our children's children who will be here in 20 years, wondering what happened to their groundwater and the astronomical bills we have left behind to create another drinking reservoir. All right, okay, so we had a comment that I would like Elizabeth to address, please, which is Kelly said it seems like it's too late to do anything. So Elizabeth, can you address that? I mean, I think we're all feeling that, is it too late?
I don't think so. We cannot go back to the way it was. We can improve what's going on now, and we can stop further damage. But is it too late? We need more information, truly. We do not have a groundwater monitoring network. We have one well that's started to decline about 15 years ago. But we need to stop what we're doing. You saw the difference between 87 and 2024. It's breathtaking, and we cannot keep that going. We need to preserve what's left. I believe, we have a lot of water resources that will allow us to we have a lot to play with. 44 inches of rain a year and not being in a desert gives us a lot of play. There are things you can do so that I don't think it's hopeless, but it's discouraging.
Yeah. Okay. So it means that we really have to work very hard. All of these applications are not just about that one community. It is collectively and cumulatively what is happening with Cat Harpin Valley Estates, with General whatever Manassas Preserve, not you've got Buckland Preserve, not. There's a lot of applications that are coming into the western end. We've got everything that's happening in the Nokesville area along Vint Hill Road. So it's really important that everybody engage now, because it's all of our drinking water, whether you're on well water or you are on water that is on the eastern end that you're getting from the Occoquan Reservoir. It's all being impacted. Does anybody have any questions they want to put in the chat?
I'm not seeing any, but while we give folks a minute, I just wanted to kind of speak to something. And this will be when we send the wrap-up email, we'll include some of the staff comments that Karen was referring to. And when I was looking through them before, one of the things that stood out to me was how this proposed Buckland not preserve contrasts with a lot of the strategic plan. And the county just completed the strategic plan not very long ago. I have a personal connection to that because my dad was the lead contractor that helped guide that entire process. Now, he didn't have any input on it, but he was the organizer of all of those meetings and all of that data. And there were certain goals with that. And one of the goals was preservation. And a lot of this was based on resident feedback. Not all of it. There was a lot of feedback in it, but one of the consistent things that people were saying was important to them was maintaining that preservation and maintaining that parks and open space. And that's something that I think sometimes the board needs a little bit of a reminder. I know it was mentioned earlier in this call, but it consistently comes up as a priority for folks within this county. But it's consistently something that is challenged from a land use perspective. So we will, once we get the video uploaded to YouTube, then we'll send around a final email that will have the link to YouTube. It'll have this chat as well, and then some of the other attachments that we've been talking about.
Just want to remind everybody that Ashley has really worked very hard on this 3 Rs. And that 3 Rs is the roadmap for everybody. It incorporates our strategic goals. It incorporates smart growth. It incorporates that piece of protecting our critical drinking water supply as groundwater for wells and also as the groundwater and surface water for the Occoquan Reservoir. And it's really important that everybody, when they reach out to the supervisors, remind them that there is this roadmap. If we want to protect not just what we have now for us, but for that next generation, now is the time. We're really at a crossroads from what I've heard today.
Absolutely. And then we just had one other comment that kind of added to everything we're talking about, that the demolition of large spaces of trees has a direct impact for those who have asthma, and this can aid in asthma-related attacks, which is a concern for her household. And that's absolutely vital. Like, a very important point. Okay, so we do have a question. I'll just read it as it is. How come the supervisors are so uneducated about the quality of our drinking water? And this is from, if you'd like to come off of mute and share anything else about the question, feel free. If not, we can jump in and see if anybody wants to speak to the supervisor awareness about this issue.
Curious what Elizabeth has to say.
Well, Ashley and I actually discussed that somehow the supervisors did not understand where the water was coming from. And that Prince William Water, in providing customer service and saying constantly, we can provide whatever you need, misled them into thinking that all the decisions they make, the water is unlimited. It is not. And in case you haven't noticed, or you probably haven't, there are water restrictions in Prince William County. They've been saying don't water your lawns. There are conserve water warnings up now. So water is not unlimited. And I'm afraid that our supervisors just don't understand where the water comes from. And we were trying to talk about how you get people to understand the basics.
Elizabeth, I have a question. There has been talk that I am privy to that it is all the wells that are sucking up all of our water, and that everybody needs to go on public water and sewer, which of course we all know then brings in development. So how do you balance, first of all, what is your position on that argument that wells are the reason why we are seeing this drought, this lack of water in our streams, and I don't know why they can even speak to groundwater because we haven't done a study. But let's just pretend that this is something that a supervisor is saying. Then
the answer to that is it's total and complete bullshit. We're talking about yes, there are 16,000 private wells in the county. They are throughout the entire county. They draw very little groundwater. By the way, a lot of them were here first. But I will tell you, the groundwater was fine back in the day when the water supply to Prince William County came from groundwater wells in the Manassas area. There is a groundwater well that was contaminated in the Superfund site. That was my start in groundwater, that is still pumping and wasting 70 million gallons a year, which is more than, and then there's a Amazon single well that draws 35 million gallons a year. So we've got 100 million gallons a year. The problem is not my well or your well.
Thank you. That's really important because I think that's a piece that is propagating the risk of some of these developments being approved, because then you have people coming off the use of well water. So thank you.
And we did have a question in the chat that kind of aligns with that. I don't know if there's anything else we want to add, but they recall is from Linda Wright. Linda, do you want to come on and ask your question? Or would you like me to just go ahead and read it? Okay. So Linda recalls a certain supervisor. Oh, I think she was coming off mute.
We can't hear you, Linda. Come off mute.
Still muted.
Oh, there you go.
I'm on my cell phone, and I should be on another situation. Yes, Elena, I just wanted to remind you of that conversation I had a month ago when we were addressing this very issue with a supervisor who told me that the issue is really with our wells and the Rural Crescent drawing down the aquifers as opposed to public water. And I was aghast at that. And I think the next day I kind of emailed you to see if you'd had that same understanding.
Okay. So this is a lovely map from DEQ. It's showing some of the biggest drawing wells in the county. These are not individual wells. So we've got wells drawing 70 million, 40 million, 20 million a year. These are supply wells or corporate wells. These aren't the little tiny individual wells. So these are large wells pulling it. Agricultural properties, there are a few agricultural properties that still irrigate, and they pull about 5 million gallons a year. Your basic, let's see, let's do the math. So your basic private well pulls about 55, 60,000 gallons a year. As opposed to these large ones in the county. So you've got two pulling more than 70 million gallons. So the use of groundwater, it's not us.
Well, this needs to be clarified because this is a tool I am certain that every developer is using, and as they market their property to each of the supervisors. And you know, as much as we appreciate working with the planning office, they don't make the decisions. It is the supervisors, and if they're communicating with planning, that's one thing. But if they're not, they're hearing exactly what the supervisor are providing. I mean, the developers are providing them. So I think we need to strategically figure out how we get this message across in a public way, so that, you know, they can't continue with this discussion of
Ignorance.
yeah, it's total ignorance. I mean, I am no specialist as you are. And by the way, we have a neighbor in Buckland. I don't know if you know Brian Mannix. He was a deputy director of EPA under Bush, but and he was the National Resource Secretary under George Allen. But he lives here in Buckland and he owns the mill, the Buckland Mill. And you know, we have seen Broad Run go dry several times, and it's something that's happening. The charter for the town of Buckland, that was there was a petition to incorporate the town, and the petition read in 1798 that Broad Run was important to the incorporation of the town because it was a never failing water supply. Well, it never did fail until the last 2 decades. And it's gone dry. We could walk across it.
Right. It has nothing to do with me 15 miles away pumping my 150 gallons a day.
Absolutely none. No. Well, we have to educate the decision makers, because this is evidently the you know, it was what was told to me. So I mean, it made me ponder, and I thought, well, goodness, no wonder they're supporting a development. And by the way, I think they just approved 250 units right over there at 15 and 29. I mean, these are all units that are right by Lake Manassas, the mouth water of Lake Manassas, Broad Run at Buckland. And, you know, it's
they're going to dry out Lake Manassas, which is part of the water supply for western Prince William County. It is the water supply for Manassas, but western Prince William supplements the Corvallis supply coming from Fairfax County with water from Lake Manassas. And as they build around the headwaters there, they're going to dry it out. And you know, the Occoquan is a significant contributor to it. Plus, they're building all those data centers there. They're going to find themselves with no groundwater. And yet, they're not approving any more houses with wells. But, you know, basically, they're going to dry it out.
What, if I might ask, do you have any understanding as to the effect of horizontal drilling underneath Lake Manassas, primarily at 29. It sounds like you know this county very well. So this would be Lake Manassas 29 at 15 and 29. And there have been 2 horizontal drilling projects to service fiber to the data centers. And there is a proposed third horizontal drilling project that is to supply water from the, I guess, the public water from Fairfax to Fauquier County because of the dismal situation they find themselves in with unpotable water.
No, I'm not particularly aware of these projects. Horizontal drilling is, standard procedure for going underneath things, as well as for fracking into, it's just standard operating procedure when you drill. You drill horizontally as well as vertically, and usually you can turn it. So you go down and you make a turn. So if you want to pass cable underneath or pass a pipe, you don't have to open all the topsoil. You just go down and shove it.
So you don't
But
think that would not impact drinking water?
Disturbing water, sure, it impacts it, but not tremendously.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask.
It disturbs a limited area and gives you a channel for contamination to move along.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. I think that's something that we'll have to figure out how to make sure the supervisors and the community understands that it is not well water. So we can talk later.
Okay, sounds.
Thank you, Linda. Does anybody have any other questions, or are we?
We don't have any other ones in the chat.
No?
Does anybody off mute have a question? No? Okay. Now, there was just a note in the chat that if the supervisors continue not to have the data, the water study is available, they can keep going and say they don't know when it comes back to them later, which I think is a good point. The Sustainability Commission did bring up the need for a groundwater study. I think that was in 2024. Correct me if I'm wrong, but recently.
Yes, 2024.
Okay. Thank you. And is that in progress, or has that not been started?
Actually, on the lowdown, they are doing, they used the money that was allocated in 2021, the first time I tried to get a groundwater study, to build a theoretical soil moisture model using data that was collected historically by the Aquaquan Monitoring Laboratory and the USGS. There are several real problems with this, and it has no verification. It's a theoretical model, and they're spending 300, the money we had to build it. It has real limitations, but I'm afraid they're going to try and pass it off at year end of, look, we did it. And it's like full of nothing but assumptions because there's no sampling verification, and it necessarily assume, what they're doing is taking the flow from rivers and trying to match it up with rainfall to create a potential recharge, but it assumes a certain amount of constant subsurface. And that's the one thing Prince William doesn't have. It has Mid-County, which is really like a mud aquifer, a clay aquifer. It has the coastal plain. It has the fractured rock, the crystalline in the top edge. And they have no data from the headwaters, which of course are where we're seeing the most impact. And data from monitoring wells could actually give us a response. Work done by NASA, Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, found that soil moisture studies, even in the consistent soils of California, which are far more sandy and uniform than they are in Prince William County, that they overestimate the recharge of groundwater based on soil moisture. So they have real limitations. But yeah, that's what they're doing. Too
Thank
much
you.
information. I'm sorry.
That's very helpful. It sounds like there's a lot of factors that need to be considered and customized for the area where the study's being done. Thank you for the insight.
I have a question. I don't know if you are able to answer. This is Jessica Grove. I keep hearing a lot about water rights and the data centers buying water rights in areas like Texas and stuff. Is that something that could show up here in this area where
In the West, because it is far more arid than the East, there are rights allocated based on first come, first serve ownership of water. On the East, groundwater is differently managed, and the laws basically say if you drop a well, you can have as much groundwater as you want, as you can pump. You can pump enough groundwater to draw it from all your neighbors, unless you're in a groundwater management area or you you meet the DEQ requirements for those big wells where you're supposed to report. There's no limitation on what they can take, but they're supposed to report it to DEQ. So in Virginia, the law is you can, unless you're in a groundwater management area, you can take as much water as you want. Go right ahead. And if you take more than a certain amount per day or per month, you're supposed to report it to DEQ. One problem with that is you could have 10 little wells on your site pulling fractions of it and you don't have to report it. Or you could not track the water and be ignorant of how much you're pulling, in which case, you didn't know, so you don't have to report. Isn't that lovely?
so theoretically, if Digital Gateway to rear its ugly head and show up, magically it shows up with 37 data centers down the street, they could do what they did in Indiana and just drill wells, permitted or not, because, well, they
have to get permits for the wells, but the permits are to drill the wells. The permits aren't for how much water you can pull. So
in
yeah,
Indiana, they did it without permits. They just did it on their property until they were caught.
Right. Well, they could just, drill the wells and pump as much water as they want till they dried out everyone.
Cool. That's awesome.
So there was actually a bill, I think it was last year, and I can't remember who the state legislator was. She was out of Fairfax. And when she heard that this was possible, she was shocked. And all I can tell you is that I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99.99% sure that bill never made it out of the full committee. So that's something. So okay, Elizabeth's saying yes.
It was
So,
laid on the table.
Okay. So, that's something we need to revisit. And this requires, everybody getting engaged now. And I can say it's just really important to pay attention to Prince William Conservation Alliance and their work on water. And we are all a part of the solution. And there's no burying our heads, because whether we're here or not, somebody we care about, we're leaving this mess behind. And so for right now, what we can do, just to sort of circle back around, is we can send emails to the Board of Supervisors. Even, you don't have to know all the issues. You just have to send a letter to every single supervisor and say, I believe that there are concerns with this project, the Buckland Knot Preserve, among others. We have concerns about groundwater. We have concerns about tree canopy loss. We have concerns about the impact on our infrastructure, taxes, roads, and go with that smart growth argument. And the more people do that, the more they will pay attention, especially if you don't live, um, along Cerro Gordo or Falkland Farms. So I just thinking about how we put this all together and not feel overwhelmed is every action you take for every application doesn't mean you have to show up to every board meeting. It's helpful if there's a certain application before the board, and you will certainly be told when and if the CPA is initiated. And first, it has to be initiated. And it would be great to have people on this call who are concerned, write letters, show up, tell your neighbors if you like your clean drinking water, then you need to start showing up. And that's how we can all make a difference, act locally, think globally. For Prince William County, that's what you can do, is you can talk about the 3 R's. And the supervisors are aware of what that is. You can talk about the importance of a groundwater study. And of course, we can send out talking points. You can, reflect back on this video and watch it again. And you can also call the Prince William Conservation Alliance. You can also volunteer. So I don't know that there are any more questions. So I think it's probably a good time getting close to 8:30. Oh, yes.
Just want to remind you that you're going to have these planning divisions rebuttal or the response to the CPA. And there's a lot of good information in there, and they reference specific points in the long range plan, in smart growth. So you have a great resource there to use.
Correct. You can reflect back on the plan. And of course, PWCA can make sure that that is, accessible so people know how to, probably what we can do. Evelyn, is when you post the video, maybe there's a way you can reflect back to where the application is.
Yep. Yeah, we can do that.
And that way people can look for themselves. So yeah, I mean, this is really evidence-based. It's not really a field thing. It's an evidence-based thing. And are we ready to close out, Evelyn, do you think?
I think so. We'll send that email out next week with a link to the video and all of the links that we've talked about for the various resources. And please feel free to share it with anyone that couldn't make it tonight and would benefit from this very important conversation.
We can all make a difference. All you have to do is act. So I want to thank everyone. It was a little bit hectic, but I think it worked out pretty good. And appreciative of the presenters, Karen and Elizabeth, and Michael's not here. This is truly, takes a village to protect where we live, and not just for ourselves, but for the broader good. And thank you, Evelyn. You were fantastic. I appreciate keeping me on task. And for everybody who participated, you made a difference just by showing up here. So thank you. And everybody have a good night.
Thank you. And thank you, Elena, for being our leader today.